Karen Cooper, welcome to the Entrepreneur Next Door. Um, for my listeners, my podcasts are an hour. I always tell people, I know it's a big ask. Go to the settings and change the speed to 1.25. You won't miss anything. It's gonna fly by. But um, I've had people ask me, why do you do an hour? It's so much time. And the answer is, I can't get insights and a real conversation within less than an hour. I feel that I'm rushed, and I don't want to be rushed. So, as my friend Zinab always says, I'm not for everyone. So, if you don't want, break it up. I listen to podcasts all day long. The best ones are an hour, and I leave it and I come back to it, and it's okay. So, Karen Cooper, I'm not going to call him my friend because Rich Litvin is a phenomenal coach, very, very well known. I've followed him for a long time. He actually said yes and was on my podcast. But one of his famous ways that his icebreaker with clients, I almost said patients, is tell me your story. That's his first question. So, Karen Cooper, tell me your story.
Brooklyn girl, born and bred, moved to Staten Island, did the whole you go to college, you get a job thing. Loved it until I was pregnant with my child. Was resentful for doing it for a really long time. Pivoted careers 4 years ago to an entrepreneur. That's less than a minute, but you said not to get deep.
All right, listen, it's perfect.
That's the
We
short
got a
version.
lot. Okay. So for everybody who doesn't know, Brooklyn girls are something else. So we're going to find out.
Yes, we are.
Uh, uh, only Brooklyn girls can have a. Uh, is it when is it? Is every Friday that you do your dance party when you get on
Yes,
the camera?
every Friday dance party.
Okay, so yeah, so not everyone's gonna get on camera on Fridays, play one of their favorite tunes,
I
dance
just
around
dance.
and lip sync and then lip sync. So hey, I can't
True,
do it, but you did.
true.
Okay, so Karen, we'll get a little bit serious. If I ran into you in Brooklyn when you were 16, 17, and I said, Karen, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was the answer?
Veterinarian. I wanted to
Okay,
be a
so of course,
veterinarian when I grew up. I did. I
so of
realized not,
course,
that's not even a
it
joke.
okay. So it begs the question, of course. So what the heck happened?
It's a long, winding road. I always, like legitimately, I always had pets. I had like gerbils and parakeets growing up, and I used to. I'm not even joking when I tell you, like cats. I would get cats off the street in Brooklyn and like bring them into the apartment and feed them Apple Jacks. Like that really was a true thing. My mother, I think, wanted to kill me on a daily basis. Um, but I always wanted to be a veterinarian for some. I don't know why. Like I can't explain why. And like in ninth grade, I interned at a vet at a veterinarian. In high school, I went to Lincoln High School in Brooklyn. I was in the vet program. I even took the vet tech test. So at 17, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Then I went to college. So to answer your question, what happened? I went to college. I went to Brooklyn College, and then I started. Oh, this is not easy, and it was hard. And rather than I don't want to say push through, but rather than it's hard, but okay, I'll deal with it and I'll figure out a way to figure it out. I decided not to pursue being a veterinarian, because science was hard in college. That's the true story. So I
Yeah.
switched my major to TV radio.
Okay. So give me, if you don't mind, a relatively brief overview of, we're going to call this your corporate career. Um, Not the good, the bad, and the ugly piece, but kind of like what you did.
I was one of the few humans who actually did what she majored in. So I majored in communications, TV, radio, and I worked in the advertising industry. So I was on the media buying side for quite some time. And then I switched over to the systems side for the latter part of my career. So at the beginning of my career, I was media buying and I got all the perks. I went to all the plays and I did all the trips, and we worked hard and played hard. Like, we really did. And I loved it. Advertising industry was a great industry. So that's what I did. And then when I switched to the system side, I was doing, QA, client success, customer service, business analyst, that kind of a thing. So that's what I did throughout my career.
Great. Um, so I'm going to, I think I'm going, I like to read what people put on their about me and some of the content that they put on LinkedIn because it's such an important platform and you really want to put stuff on there that represents who you are. Some people sugarcoat it and make it salesy, and other people actually do what it's supposed to be. Is like, hey, this is who I am. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
me better, different. This is what I can do. So I'm going to read your stuff, and I'm going to ask you some questions.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot create the business of your dream with the same flavor of ambition that you used in corporate. You might have just chalked it up to a crappy job, boss, or toxic work environment, but I'm here to tell you that corporate culture causes trauma. You started to side hustle as your escape hatch, to finally be your own boss, have freedom, and live life in your terms. So you're sort of describing people who are is so two quick questions. One, your target audience, your target clients, and we're not doing this as a self promotion, but
Mm-hmm.
to understand you more,
Mm-hmm.
are primarily women, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
your niche. Okay.
Yes.
And secondly, these are women that are also entrepreneurs.
Correct.
Okay, to a varying degrees of success, right?
Correct.
And I would assume, just like my service to humanity is to help entrepreneurs that are, we call them stuck, right? They
Right.
they got into it, but then they're stuck, and we can define stuck later. But that's your audience. That's what you do for a living. That's your entrepreneurial journey, as in, okay, if you're one of those women who worked in corporate, jumped into entrepreneurship, and things may not be working the way they should be, I'm here to remove the veil of secrecy behind why you're stuck. And I want to tell you that it goes back to corporate trauma.
Correct. And it's
Okay.
deeper than
Okay.
corporate trauma, but yes, that's in and
Okay.
of
And
itself.
and I
Yes.
and I want you to help me and my audience understand why it's deeper than the corporate trauma. Um, so before we get to that, I'm going back to you. I was a homogeneous people pleaser, codependent, and a control freak. Right? Those
Yep.
are those are your words. And
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at everything you've published and whatever words you said, and that's what you said. Um, so there are four critical questions that you ask in order to sort of unpack someone stuckiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's throw them at you first. Okay. First question: what part of your old identity needs to be released?
Mm.
You didn't expect that, did you?
Well, it's an interesting question now. Like I would have answered it differently like 3 years ago. Now I actually uncovered this over the weekend, which was um, what I'm doing is not good enough.
Okay, so that's part of your old
That's
identity.
old
That these are
identity.
right.
Yes, it was something
Yeah.
that I uncovered this weekend because people keep coming telling me I should be doing something or this is what I should be doing, or, enhancing something or something like that. And it occurred to me like, why was it was bothering me in some way, shape, or form. And I uncovered that, why it was like, why is this bothering me? So I got curious. It's like, okay, why is this affecting me? Because normally I don't necessarily let what other people are saying, other people's opinions on none of my business. I go by that creed. And in being curious and whatnot, my little girl, it's really my little girl. It was that she wasn't seen, she wasn't heard. And people kept saying to her always, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. So I made it like, well, what I do is not enough. And so that was just
Okay.
something that I uncovered this weekend as to that's an onion, a layer of onion that I'm just peeling now. It's like, so that could be something that I'm working on shedding so that I could, you know.
And the reason I ask you those questions and I want to talk about your own personal experiences because I personally believe that you can't coach someone unless you've gone through the process that you're trying to help someone else and coach them. You can't just do this from, Coaching for Dummies book or watching a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
YouTubes of famous coaches and then you just and it's I mean you could do it, but then it doesn't take our clients too long to figure out that
Right.
you're a fraud because that's not how it's done, right? So, second question, what needs to go, right? So the first thing was the part of your old identity that needs to be released is maybe I'm not doing enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what needs to go then? What is it? I guess the one needs to go question is like what's stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve?
Well, it's the broad answer to that, and so when you're in the position, what's stopping you is that there's a few things. It's number one, you're so used to being like that that you think that's how it's supposed to be, which was an old version of me. And so you're like the suffering is like normal, and you just want to suffer. It's a behavior. And what's also stopping you is the fear of change. It's the this is how I always was, and what's going to be on the other side of that. And so it's a little bit nerve wracking to when you've never been in that type of position to do something differently, and when you move the needle, as I know now, your mind and body work to keep you the same. But if you don't know that, it's like, wait, I'm moving. And then it's like somehow I'm scared and you feed into it. So that's what stops a lot of people is the fear, quite frankly, of I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I would add to that um, it's perfectly natural and it's part of who
Mm-hmm.
we are because it
Right.
goes back to the fight or flight
Right.
mechanism, the amygdala back here, that the minute we feel uncomfortable, i.e., fear or frustration, what we want to do is run away from it, right? Instead
Correct.
of confronting it. And the running away
Exactly.
from it is one aspect of running away from something is doing nothing, right?
Exactly.
Just keep the
Exactly.
status quo. Okay, so question number three, what stories are you done telling?
Am I allowed
Or
to
maybe one
curse?
of them. From your laugh, maybe one. Okay.
Well, am I allowed to curse?
Of course,
Okay, the
yes.
the bullshit. What stories are the bullshit stories of not enoughness, of unworthiness, and being less than?
Got it. And I don't know. To me, I'm a foreigner. I've been here long enough. But to me, bullshit is not a curse, but it's okay.
Okay.
And they say it on TV. It's allowed, so it's okay. All right. Last question. Roy, what are you no longer available for?
People pleasing, controlling, and codependency, and I'm no longer available for other people. When I say people please, I'm no longer. I'm setting boundaries, so I'm no longer available to be available all the time, everywhere for everyone.
Got it. So the people pleasing piece is interesting because I'm a Seth Godin groupie. I've followed him for 30 years. I love the guy. I think like him. I wish I had half his brain. But one of the things that he always talks about, and it goes back to what you just said, right? The people pleasing. This is industrial era thinking, right? When everybody was sitting on the assembly line and were told, this is how you do it, just keep doing it,
Right.
i.e., go to school, be a good boy and girl, listen to your teacher, do what they tell you to do, and then go get a job and then listen to your boss and follow that and don't do outside the line, don't do
Exactly.
anything, and then
Yep.
you'll have a happy life. And this was a one big scam that everybody was sold, but it's okay. They still managed to survive it. And interestingly enough, we're in the 21st century, but we still are in the industrial area. So many people are
Right.
still stuck there, like you said, people pleasing, make other people happy. I'm going to give up my own identity, what I want to do, because someone told me, whether it's our
Mm-hmm.
parents, whether it's our loved ones, whoever it is. Um, so here's another quote that you said: "We all have in us a little child that needs to be healed."
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that goes back to when we talked about getting rid of stuff and trauma. You said there's a lot more
Yes.
to that.
Yes.
So there's the corporate trauma that we want to talk about, and then I think the other layer from this quote is Yeah, it's your corporate trauma, but preceding it
Right.
was your childhood, right? Not
Correct.
look, not all of us went through trauma. Did you?
Small T trauma. Yeah, I mean, I think in a way we kind of all did, because it's not necessarily like a big T trauma of like an assault or something like that, but it's maybe you weren't picked to play something on the playground, and you made meaning out of it that people don't like me, or I'm not enough, or you were told by a teacher that to do more or be more, and you made meaning out of that. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. You know what I mean? Like, these our beliefs are formed based off of something that happened to us and that we made meaning from. So that's what I mean from childhood, right? It's the I'm not enough. I'm not. The overarching theme is not being enough or worthiness. You know what I mean? And it's that's what I mean by the trauma. It caused something within you to believe something about yourself, but it also caused your body to feel a certain way as well. And so that carried with you. I wasn't born a people pleaser, right? I wasn't born codependent. I became that way to adapt I adapted my behavior because of, the not feeling of worthy, not feeling enough, not feeling like I was doing good enough, because people kept saying, well, I think you should be doing this and I think you should be doing that. And I was never praised for whatever it was that I was doing, right? So being not praised for whatever it was that I was doing, like, oh my God, great job, you're doing such a good job. Never hearing that made me believe that I was less than and not worthy and not enough. And so I became a people pleaser and control freak and codependent, right? So let's just use me as the example. And then that carried on throughout my life, my relationships, not just with myself, with my ex-husband, with my children, with people, and in the work environment. So while, like, we was going back to piggyback to circle it back to corporate trauma, yes, there's trauma that goes along with corporate, the hustle culture and all that stuff. But being a raging control freak, people pleaser, and codependent working in corporate meant that I would stay in toxic jobs, or I would twist and turn and make myself crazy to do what needed to be done, even though I didn't necessarily want to, but I felt like I had to.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I know someone who's very, very close to me, who I crazy about and love to the end of the world. Um, and what you just said was that, we some of us spend our lives as people pleasers, right? Because we are expected to be happy and we can't show emotions. And by the way, it's things like, so my brain will fire in all directions, and I keep thinking women, because that's your audience, women in
Mm-hmm.
corporate, uh, and yeah, we don't understand it as men, although I can relate to some of it because I grew up in a culture in Israel where women are completely, for the most part, equal. They
Subservient.
serve they
Right.
serve in the army. They
Mm-hmm.
they reach key decision making in key positions, even though there's this part of the population, the religious sections that are,
Right.
chauvinistic pigs with their culture, will ignore
Yeah.
them. But for the most part, modern Israeli women are pretty much equal. And so I'm thinking about women in corporate who get a job, feel the pressure that for whatever reason, wrong, but it's there, they have to perform and do better than their counterparts
Mm-hmm.
men, and they always live in that universe of, am I doing enough? Are they looking at me? What else can I do? It's a vicious cycle, right?
100%.
Uh, and I'm sure that's part of the trauma that you want to talk about. So this is something you wrote that I absolutely love, and it's called Trust and Surrender, right? Sometimes we are scared about what we are going to lose and hold on for dear life. Holding on actually works to our disadvantage because we then can't receive what's meant for us. We are in effect blocking it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind was not careers but unhappy marriages, right? That's true when for whatever reason we no longer are in love or there's not a good fit,
Mm-hmm.
but often we hold on to it,
Mm-hmm.
usually for the sake of the kids. But then, just like everything else, and as you were talking, I kept reminding myself, yes, you can be a people pleaser. You can spend the rest of your life doing things that you're expected to. You can suppress what you want to do. I think for the lucky ones, there comes a point of that milestone where
Hmm.
this thing comes crushing in,
Correct.
and you get that. And I think that was a term you used in one of your posts, but it's terms I love is the ice bucket, the cold water dumped on your head, and that's that moment where you say, "But wait, I am someone. What about
Hmm.
me? What about pleases me? What about what I want to do?" And hopefully, for some people, it happens early enough where you could still make the change, right?
Hmm.
I mean, if you're in your 50s, that doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's going to be much tougher, right? So
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that one, if I may. I love you.
go for it.
Um,
That's it.
but but I 2 year. I'm 55. So for reference, I'm 55 at this taping,
Spring chicken.
and I am a fabulous 50s and fabulous. It's best age ever. However, 2 years ago is when I ended my marriage. So doing the math, I was 53. And to your point, one of the questions was that I was asked by my mentor in a group setting was, well, we were all asked this question about what are you tolerating? And I sat back and I was like, that's such a great question. By the way, anybody can use that question. I thought it was a great question. But what was I tolerating? Right. And I was like, oh, crap. I was tolerating a bad marriage, at that point, and a lot of other things as well. But it's a great question to go inward and really ask the question. And while I didn't envision, okay, being 50 at the time, 53 now. So now fast forward 2 years later, I'm 55 years old. I have 2 days shy of my daughter's going to be 23 years old in 2 days. My son is 18. My daughter doesn't live at home. She lives in Delaware. My son is starting college in September. So I'm a middle-aged single woman, empty nester, right? I didn't envision this at all. This wasn't on my bingo card at all. And while it could be crippling, right? It could be absolutely crippling. And oh my God, I'm 55. Because part of it is the fact that like the age thing is like, and I mean in general speaking, it's like, oh my God, she's this age and she can do this. Society is like, apparently at certain ages we can't do things. And that's a whole other conversation I'm not going to get into on that soapbox right now. But being 55, it's it presents it doesn't it only presents challenges if you make it present challenges, right? In terms of life, like ageism is incorporated in that thing as a thing, right? So there are certain aspects of life where being a middle-aged person is a hindrance based off of a whole bunch of other things. But in terms of just living your life and making the pivot and changing things around, why can't it be done? I would just argue that it could be done at any age. It doesn't, the challenge is what you make the challenge of. It can't be, oh, I'm 55, it's too late. I'm 53, it's too late. No, it was honestly the best thing for us, right? It was honestly the best thing for us. And my corporate career ended 4 years ago. So I was 51, right, when my corporate career ended. So basically my life started, so to speak, or my life, let me just say this, I wouldn't say this, my whole change of life, and as a pun towards us women, I said that on purpose, but my whole change of life started after I was in my 50s.
So you said so the corporate career ended 4 years ago. That's sort of like I don't know, beginning of COVID. Are we're
My
past?
corporate career ended because of COVID. Yeah, I was freelancing
Yeah.
at NBC, and my contract, the project was dying in January, so we knew that, and I didn't know if I could look for another job because I had experienced ageism prior to getting that freelance position. I was doing network marketing. I was doing network marketing on the side at that point, and I was just unsure of what path I wanted to go in. And then COVID hit mid-March and my contract ended at the end of March. And I was like, well, and advertising was a hard hit industry after COVID anyway. So I made the decision right then and there that I would not look for another job and I would pursue entrepreneurship full time.
So tell me about the trauma that you experienced in the corporate world. Examples.
Examples were, I one raging example, well, two. I'll give two. I was a working mother, even though I wore it like a badge of honor. It was very much frowned upon. Being a working mother, leaving at 5 p.m. to go pick my child up from daycare and that kind of a thing. So I experienced a lot of a lot of trauma in that respect because it was very much I was made to feel, and again, I also made meaning out of it, but made to feel less than, or not that I was capable of doing my work once I had my children. So that was really sucky. And then later on in my career, I had a poor review, and I was like, well, I don't do that stuff. So I was reviewed, and my review was poor based off of things that I didn't even do, meaning it wasn't in my wheelhouse. It wasn't that I didn't do them because it wasn't, that I didn't do it and I did a poor performance. It was that it wasn't something that was in my wheelhouse to even do, but I was given a poor review for it.
Mm.
So they didn't even know what I did. And side note, I stayed at that job.
So interesting. You talk about reviews, which is I guess it's a corporate thing, but I spent my career in small business, and we've done reviews. So it's not just the
Right,
domain of Fortune 500 stuffy,
right,
large HR departments that have people do stuff, but it's so reviewing somebody is an important function but people do it the wrong way. That's my pet peeve, right?
correct,
The people approach reviews is okay. So this is my opportunity to tell you everything you've done wrong, and probably and justify why you're getting a sucky raise. Okay,
correct.
because my boss told me that we don't want to hand out too many raises, so everybody's expecting something. So you're gonna lower the raise, but you're gonna give them a reason why. So better find out. Tell them you didn't do it, and so your raise is minimum, whatever it is. Um, Completely ass backwards, counterproductive way of approaching reviews because it's a critical function in the way you manage people. And my approach to reviews when I was on the corporate side was not going to tell you what you did wrong because we had an ongoing, constant
Correct.
relationships where adjustments were made. Why would you wait, dummy, for the annual review, which is typically close to Christmas where everybody expecting bonuses and raises? Why would you wait a whole year to tell me what I did wrong for the past 10 months? Wouldn't that be better if you were telling me as we moved along the path towards the end of the year, whatever? Just if you see something, say something, right?
Right,
Uh, you know,
right.
we need some improvements. Great. Let's set some goals and then we'll monitor and make sure that you're improving and then we keep going. That's how that's how you build a good team and that's how you progress.
Mhm.
But no, people approach it as I'm going to tell you what they
Right.
did wrong. So my reviews, by the way, because I didn't need this opportunity to tell you what you did wrong. We've had a whole year of working closely where there was a feedback mechanism and suggestions were made. My review was, what can I do for you, Karen, to make you come to work even more excited? What can I do for you, me, not you? What can I do for you to help you improve and grow professionally and personally? Is there anything we're missing that we should be doing?
Mm,
So my review
love
was
that.
coming from a responsibility of you're an employee, you somebody that reports to me. I want you to be, I want to use the word happy, but I want you
Right.
to love what you do because then you own your job
Mm-hmm.
and then the company does better. Multiply that by X,
100%.
right?
Right.
Um, so so your traumas were stupid review about something you've never done before, right? What are some other examples from people that you work with, other women?
The politics, the politics that go along with corporate really were not geared. It was really, um, you have to work hard, you have to hustle, you have to do this, you have to do that. It was really like have to. And it was not really understood. Like to your point, I love what you just said about being happy and having the online dialogue, ongoing dialogue and things like that. That wasn't the case. And it was also a lot of times, especially women, we had to be really loud to be heard.
Mhm.
I was mid level my whole career, so I was never an executive level or things like that. But it was almost like you had to prove, even at mid level, there was something that I had to prove. I felt like there was something I had to prove. And a lot of women I speak to also feel like there's something they had to prove because I'm a woman and therefore I can't do it the same way as a man. And therefore, you know what I'm saying? And there you go. So it was very much, um, what's the word? Like we were looked on and it was very detailed. You know what I mean? Like dot the I, cross the T, that kind of a thing. So that's really what it was like boiling down to. It was a lot of, no, you have to. I just did a post this morning about having to hustle and it was like praised and it was, it was like, oh my God, you worked hard and you were successful. But on the inside, a lot of us are dying. We're saying that we're fine, but we're not fine. We're dying, but we're doing what we think we have to do in order to be quote unquote successful.
So you sort of like you're playing defense the whole
Correct.
time
Correct.
because of what's coming at you. The thing that boggles my mind is, for God's sake, this is 2024, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's still going
Yeah.
on. Probably not talked about enough because of politics, and once in a blue moon somebody will sue for something, but it's not about legal action. It's about where does that come from, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
2024, 2022, 2021. I mean, we're 21st century, end of 20. This is not the 50s and the 60s. Where do you think this is coming from? Yes, we're still male dominated corporate
Well,
structures. We get that.
I honestly, I think it's societal. You know what I mean? It's really a lot of society and media and when things that we're fed from, you know what I mean? Just started watching, I never watched it when it was on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I never
Hmm.
watched it and I kept seeing reels on it. So I literally I'm on episode 2 and and in it, I believe it's either the 50s or the 60s. So the wife is, she's home and that kind of a thing. And just what's going on, like what she's being fed about the weight and how she looks and what she should wear and how when her husband decided that he wanted to divorce her, she should go get him back because, you're supposed to be married and you're supposed to, you know what I mean? It was like that. This is what's going on in the first 2 episodes, right? And I was like, oh my God, that's the way it was. And that's the way it kept being. So these are the things that we're being fed, right? And this is the way it's quote unquote always been, right? So, and to make the change generationally or otherwise, and to be like the outlier, so to speak, is is ostracized. Let's say frowned upon and ostracized, right? Like look at Steve Jobs and look at like all the people who, did something, Jeff Bezos with Amazon, right? Like, everybody thought they were nuts. And Jamie Kern Lima has this great line in her book called Worthy. It's like, you're not crazy, you're just first. But I think that's why a lot of people don't necessarily fear, but it's also like, what are people going to say? And I'm crazy and whatnot. So it's always been the way it's been and people just keep it that way. And what it's taking and what I'm seeing now though, is the pushback, right? Is the wait a minute. And even like, because it's like we're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore, right? It's, enough already. Like it is 2024, right? We lived through the fact that like we were working from home when the pandemic happened and now we have to go back and people are pushing back in that regard. I've saw a lot of articles about working moms who are like, I'm not going back to a job where I have to travel for, because here's the thing, right? And this is a trauma you don't necessarily get from corporate, but when you're a mom and you have to now commute, right, which was an hour, like, could be an hour or so each way, that takes time out of your day of seeing your kid, of doing the thing, and being at home. I'm way more productive because I'm not traveling. I'm
Hmm.
also more available because I'm not traveling, right? And that kind of a thing. And so I feel like now we're seeing people say, all right, wait a minute. I know this is the way it's been. But I think in a way the pandemic showed us, wait a minute, things can change on a dime and we could pivot and we could make do and even thrive by pivoting.
And by pivoting, you mean entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean entrepreneurship, I mean life and everything. I mean it all. Like
Yeah.
when you leave, one of the biggest things when I left when I stopped being in corporate was I still had the 9 to 5 mentality, right? I still had that hustle mentality because it was fed to me for so long. So it's ingrained in you, right? So it's like you're still hustling, you're still working crazy hours because you think that's what you need to be doing. You're not disciplined to work for yourself because you're so used to answering to other people that it's like, wait, I have to answer to myself. So you don't answer to yourself. So you do busy work and never get anything really done. Right. And then on top of all of that, you're like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, or people are going to find me out. You feel like you're a fraud, imposter syndrome. And then your identity. Who are you if you're not a person who works? Because so often our worthiness and our enoughness and our identity was tied to our job, what we were doing. And really, it's, as you know, as what you do, it's an inner job.
Yeah, well, success was always defined in terms of climbing the corporate
Right.
ladder for men and for women.
Right.
And as you're talking, I was thinking that, yeah, you're a working mother and everybody's look at you and they get pissed off because you have to leave early to go pick up your kid, which is my other pet peeve. This, oh, you go home at 5, that's a bad thing. You know, my old boss used to say to me, did you see that they leave at 5? And I looked at him and I said, why do you care? Well, I like people that stay late. And I said, why? Well, okay, that shows that they're committed. I said, no, Joe. That shows that they were inefficient all day, number one, and so they're catching up on stuff they didn't do right.
Mm,
But the other piece is a lot of people stay late. That's part of the game. So I want
correct.
my while my boss is in the office, I want him to see me at my cubicle. As soon as they leave, guess what happens? Poof, they're gone.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's so you do this on a corporate side. You know, like you're a working mom, you got to leave at 5. Oh, she's leaving at 5. Who cares? If she's a
Hmm?
great worker that was productive and efficient the entire day, she'd go home at 4:30. If I, what
Exactly.
do I care? Then the other piece is, which also happens, that if you are a single woman,
Mm,
particularly in your 30s and 40s, then something's wrong with you, right? It's
mm-hmm.
that
Right.
stupidity of people that can't break away from this templated old
Correct.
world thinking,
Yes.
that it's just unfair to women, but also you're missing a lot. Because as I said to Ashley when Ashley was on my podcast last week, I said to her, I am proud to have hired more single women,
Mm,
single mothers than anybody else in my career. And the reason was because I knew that one thing I didn't have to worry about. I didn't have to worry about them being dedicated and working hard because so much was riding on that job. And because we don't get it as men, right? It's easy to say, I mean, look, we will say that there's some improvement in the 21st century
100%.
that a lot of dads function at
Yeah.
home. Some of them are stay-at-home dads.
Yeah.
They're fine, but the majority, yes. So I'm the breadwinner. I'm gonna have to work my ass off, work late, travel. I won't be home as much, but at least I'm supporting my family. Um, for dads like me who are incredibly close to my kids and didn't want to miss a thing in their life, that was like a motherly frustration too. Like
Mm,
if I missed it, and I didn't miss much because I've always made sure that
that's awesome.
I used to say to my boss, I said, listen, I'm going to work my ass off for you. Don't care, 24 hours a day, fine. But I will not
Mm-hmm.
miss events in my kid's life.
Me neither.
Not going to happen. So, right? If there's travel that needs to be done, they're going to have to be rescheduled. Because if my son has a birthday, if he has a jazz concert, my daughter has a soccer game, and I'm the coach, no, not missing it. Why? Because I've met enough people who chase the ladder, missed out on their kids growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and they live the rest of their life in
Mm-hmm.
feeling guilty. So, um, your theme in what you do is you're a woman. You did the corporate thing. You experienced trauma, and we kind of touched on some of the traumatic events for a working mom or a single mom. It doesn't make it there, or just a woman, right? And so, at some point, a decision is made, like you said, and most people probably don't even know this name, but there was a movie called The Network, and I forgot his name. At some point, he leans out the window and screams,
Made it sound
"We
like a
won't
theater.
take it anymore!" Right? Yeah. So that's a milestone where maybe the smart ones, the lucky ones, get to that point where they say, "I'm not going to take it anymore. I want to be in charge of my future. I want to control my destiny. I can't live with trauma, with guilt,
Mm-hmm.
with you're still missing out on whatever you want to do personally plus your family." So they choose entrepreneurship. Okay, some of them choose it like you did. You got COVID accessed you out, so you say, no, I'm not going back to that. I'm going to do this. um, so I want to push back a little bit on this because when I talk to people who are, some of them were my graduate students when I was teaching graduate school, but also I'm mentoring a lot of people. When someone says, I'm unhappy at work, I think I want to start my own business. My first question is why?
Mm.
Right? So to me, and I've been a business coach for almost 13 years, and I ran around the block a few times. To me, from what I've seen, and the good, bad, the ugly, but there are no secrets to success in entrepreneurship. But there's a framework
Right.
of a
Right. Right.
roadmap
Right. Right.
that you can follow that increases your probability of being successful, right? And so when I ask someone that says I want to start my own business, and I say why, if the answer is because I hate what I do and I hate my boss and I hate my life and I hate my travel, uh, my answer to them is said, please
Don't.
don't do it. Okay, that should never be the reason why you start a business because you hate your job. Now, if you lost your job, and let's say and this I will tell you that if you're in your 50s and you lost your corporate job, there's no coming back from that. Not going to happen. If you made $150,000 as a corporate executive in Manhattan and you lost your job, they replaced you with three people. You're not going you could maybe get a job, but you're never going to get the
Nope.
job
Not
at
that
that
one.
salary level, right? So we have to recognize it, right? Um, so you lost your job. Starting a business cannot be the solution because what you don't know, you know it because you coach people. I know it because I coached them after
Mm.
they made that decision, right? Um, that you're buying into something that is 10 times more difficult and challenging than a job.
Yep.
At least with a job, I mean, well, in the old days, used to call it punch in and punch out, right? You come to the office, you punch in, you go home at 5, you punch out, you leave the worries
Right.
behind. Someone else, i.e., the business owners, whoever it is, are going to worry, but you go off to your regular life and you're done. When you're an entrepreneur, it's all on you. And there is no what I call the mothership that provides you the office space and the resources and the tools and the leads if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be in sales and all that stuff. That's gone.
Right.
Okay. Now, how do I know all that? That's good. I'm smart. It's because I've done it. And
Right.
and I and I chose to during the height of a very successful corporate career, well paid with all the perks and whatever. Um, My youngest daughter was 3 months away from graduating nursing school, so there's three kids in college, and I said it's my time.
Mm.
Okay, and so financially speaking, from a career standpoint, the worst time in the universe for anybody to quit their job. Right? The
Correct.
kids are paid, three colleges are done, good salary, good stuff. Now you can coast, you can take vacations, you can redo the bathroom for the fourth time, all this other stuff that people chase. It doesn't mean anything. Uh, and yet I walk away from it, from whatever to zero. And when my wife was super conservative, worked in the school system all her career, said, "You did what?" I said, "Why would you do that?" And I said, "Well, you know me for a long time." "Oh yeah, I know. You always talked about one day you wanted to have your own business." And I did. I spent my entire corporate career waiting for a day where I can take everything I know, jump the fence, and help people like the ones who employed me see the light, see that there's a better
Right.
way to manage your business and grow it. And so I go from whatever six figure plus to zero. And I'm hot shit. I've got great LinkedIn recommendations. I'm well respected in my industry. I have lots of connections. I really thought that I'm going to step outside
Mm-hmm.
and people are going to line up to sign me up. Right?
Yep.
And as lawyers say, that's the only thing I'll ever mention. Lawyers, nothing could be further from the truth,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And there started agonizing 18 months of building from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know that I realized quickly within the first 3 months when nothing was working for me was that when Karen works for an NBC and you go and negotiate something with someone, they feel that there's an NBC behind Karen,
Correct.
and they feel comfortable, right? The connection to the mothership is important. It's credibility, it's stability, it's whatever, right? And if one day if Karen disappears, there's other people. When you go off on your own,
That's it.
it's those two poor guys up in space that flew the Boeing Starline, whatever, dream thing, and they're stuck for 8 months in space. Well, guess what? There is no ship
Mm-hmm.
coming back to get you. In one of my favorite terms, and I keep forgetting the general that took his troops to take over an island, and as soon as they landed, they burnt the boats. Right. Uh, that's sort of like the concept of
Yeah.
when you in your late 50s, which was me, you walk away from a dream job at that point to nothing. I burnt the boat.
Yeah. You
Did
have
I
to.
have did I have many moments and sleepless nights that nothing was working and I said, well, I can always go get a job. And then my inner smarter voice would say, no, asshole, you gave it up. It's not coming back. You're on your own, bud. So I had to make it work.
Right.
I had to make it work, right? I wasn't going to drive an Uber. Not that there's anything wrong with Uber. I felt that I have so much to give. I didn't want to compromise, right? And that's, and I apologize for talking so much, but I want to set this
No, you're
up
fine.
to what I wanted to challenge you with is that um, people that choose to go to entrepreneurship as a way to overcome their corporate trauma or being let go or hating their job um, are going to fail.
Correct.
I don't care how passionate they are. They're going to fail, and the reason why they'll fail is because there has to be a higher meaning and purpose. I'm not going to use the word passion because I don't like it. Passion is overrated, and everybody throws it out. There has to be a higher purpose for why you want to start a business. I.e., I want to start a business because I want to change people's lives. I want to make a
Right.
difference. And I've come up with a way that I can do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason you want to start a business. Not because you have an idea that something's going to, okay, great. I know in one of your postings you said you have an idea, chase it, go for it. Okay, to a certain level, 100%. But you have to validate your idea.
Right.
You have to do your homework. You have to make sure that it's, objectively speaking,
Right.
it's an idea. It's not that something that your brain's telling you that's your ticket out of whatever misery you're
Correct.
experiencing.
Right.
So, when you talk about particularly women who go into entrepreneurship and owning their own business as a way to cope with naturally with trauma and not being happy in life, right? Because of that, your words were, "You have a crazy idea, just go for it," right? And I wrote down, "Okay, Karen, but what if you don't have the skills, right? What if you don't have the skills to be an entrepreneur? What if you're not ready? What if you're clueless about what entrepreneurship is all about?" It's a grueling, crawling through the mud process
Correct.
that many of us go through. And interestingly, crazy as we are, we're happy doing it and we're fulfilled crawling through it because we haven't given up
Correct.
on our purpose, right? Okay, now I'm going to shut up. It's yours.
Well, I loved everything that you just said and agree with everything you said. But also the pushback I will say, or the response is, if you have an idea, go for it. There's Dr. Google. I'll call it Google. You know what I'm saying? Like, to your point, 100%. It's not just I hate this and I'm going to go do this now and the grass is always greener, because it's not. It does. It takes time to build a business. And so that's 100% off the bat. And to be honest with you, that was not something that I knew. That I was Pollyanna. I was very Pollyanna about it, right? And I'm like, no, like you. I'm like, no, it's just going to take off and whatnot. And I was like slapped in the face, not so much, right? And so to that point, we're not trying to set you up to failing, but it's just to be aware of the fact that this is what's going to go on. But if you don't have the skills and you don't have, I didn't, even though I was doing network marketing and they give you a lot, I still lack certain skills. That's where books come in handy. Okay, personal development books come in handy. Podcasts come in handy. This one. Mel Robbins, Tracy Litt. There's a lot of podcasts out there. YouTube videos come in handy. Abraham Hicks. I listen to a bunch of Abraham Hicks videos all the time. All of these things. And, even just how do I become an entrepreneur? Right? What steps do I need to become an entrepreneur? And Google will at least have the steps. So it's like, okay, I have this idea. I think I want to go with this idea. And then really, like you were saying, sit with it. Why do you want to do it? And that kind of a thing. But it's like, okay, and now Google it. And what will happen a lot of times is, because I Google it and talk to people and have conversations with people, your community, your friends, whatever. Surround yourself with people who, are not, yes, go for it, but like more intricate discussions and conversations. But also, okay, so now it's like I have this idea and I want to do it, but it's like, okay, now I feel stuck. And maybe you're feeling like, okay, I'm doing things, but I'm not getting here. And like to your point, you help people get unstuck and whatever, and recognize that the awareness of that is the feeling of, and I know I experience this and other people I know experience this as well. And I know you work with people who experience this where it's like, okay, I have this idea. I'm Googling it. I'm doing, I'm taking notes. I'm doing the things. I'm listening to what people are saying and I'm going here. And now it's like, wait a minute. I'm feeling like this wall. And that could be where the trauma, that's where, okay, you start uncovering what's really going on underneath you and what's going on and what may oh wait, I'm working a 12-hour day. I used to do that when I worked in corporate. Do I still feel like I have to do that now? And maybe you do initially, but you are allowed to take breaks in between and that kind of a thing. So it's really understanding at the core of what's going on within you. And it could just be you're burnt out, you're tired all the time, and it's just like you think it's normal, but from listening to this podcast and following me in depth that it's not. And you're like, okay, wait, what's going on here? So,
Yeah, and there's one aspect of what we're talking about, and I call it like the crawling. You have to crawl through mud
right,
at some point to get
correct.
to a point where
Yes,
things begin to work. But
100%.
even through the mud crawling piece, the thing that you get as an entrepreneur that you didn't get in corporate is that I'm doing it for me,
Right.
and the level of personal fulfillment is unmatched by anything corporate can give you.
That is true, right? So the level of fulfillment is matched in anything corporate can view because you also learning to love yourself and oh my God, how proud you are of doing all these things for you, but also the people that you are serving. Right. So think about it from that
Mhm.
perspective. I'm doing this because I want to make an impact and I want to make sure women stand up in their power, right? And help people heal from corporate trauma. That's my personal mission, right? But yours can be whatever your mission is. But also, who are the people that are on the other side of that mission, right? So yeah, there's a lot of mud. There's a lot of wall kicking. There's a lot of incredibly insane moments. And there's a lot of highs. It's a complete and utter roller coaster entrepreneurship. I tell it to you straight. However, who are the people that are on the other side of the mud and the insanity and like, oh my God, they're literally on their hands and knees begging for a solution and you're the person who can deliver that solution to them.
But again, I'm going to take the ice bucket and throw it on us
I
again.
love this.
Um, Finding them, those people you want to serve, finding them and connecting with them
Yes.
and convincing them that you can help them is incredibly difficult. I've been doing this for 13 years.
Oh, 100%.
Every prospective client, and you know that, and every entrepreneur, every prospective client
Yes.
you talk to, you just doesn't matter. I mean, you go to my website, there are no reviews. Okay? I think reviews are bullshit. It's a waste of time. I can make stuff up. You're never going to know whether it's true or not. Okay?
Right.
No one has ever asked me when I used to have reviews. No
Right.
one ever asked me, uh, out of my clients in 13 years, maybe two or three have asked me for actual references. Most people look at reviews and they say, oh, wow, he's great. Okay. So it's crap. It doesn't matter. You know how you find out whether the person you want to hire and is good for you or not? You've got to talk to them,
I
right?
was to
So
say
what
have a
we call
conversation. Right.
a discovery call. And at
Right.
the end of the discovery call, you will have a gut feeling whether this person is genuine, whether they and through the conversation, by questions, by picking up on
Right.
intuition,
Right.
you'll know if that person gets you or not. the one thing I used to say, I tell my MBA students, and then I mentor a lot of people. I say, look, entrepreneurship is like almost like parenthood. There is no, it's not almost, it's like parenthood. There is no
There's no manual.
licensing exam that you have to pass to become an entrepreneur. All you have to do is have sex, get lucky, and have a baby. Okay, that's it. So that's entrepreneurship. There's no certification. There's no, the government doesn't tell you, oh, you're not, you
Right.
just go and do it. And the other piece is for people considering entrepreneurship, for whatever reason, I'm a parent, you're a parent. When our child started to walk, let's say at the age of 2, we did not take them down to Brooklyn to one of the most active, busy intersections
Right.
and just said, okay, Karen, you know how to walk. Let's see how you can cross the street all by yourself,
You're right.
right?
You're right.
And yet, so entrepreneurs do this, right? They cross the street and maybe they're gonna get banged up for sure, right? I'm not saying they're gonna die, not to be morbid, but there are different types of death that happen in entrepreneurship. Well, they're not death. There's certain types of traumas, to use your
Right.
word, that you'll experience as an entrepreneur when you are not prepared for it,
Right.
when you don't have the skill set. And yes, you can go watch YouTube and read books and all that stuff. You know, everybody adores Gary V, right? Everybody wants to be Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk or Mark Cuban or anybody else. But how many have actually studied them
Well,
and went
that's
back to
right.
how they got to that point? It didn't happen
That's it.
overnight,
Right.
right?
And that's the
Right?
key. Yeah.
This is Gary Vaynerchuk started with his dad's liquor store and he went around selling wine and did the stuff that he did. Cuban went door to door. What so every all of those celebrity successful guys and women who we find on Shark Tank, by the way, so that's a great place to go find them. Um, they didn't become successful overnight. So
No.
you have to pay your dues.
Correct.
But my point is to entrepreneurs, and I coach people who are so I distinguish between entrepreneurship and small business owners. To me, an entrepreneur is somebody who just started recently. They're kind of wet behind the ears. They're fairly new into this universe. A small business owner is somebody who's already been at it for a while. They have a business, maybe they have a team, they have a structure. But whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a small business owner, whether it's a $1 million client, whether it's a $10 million client, after 13 years, I can tell you they all repeat the same mistakes. Some of
Right.
them are successful, they make money, but they didn't take the time to learn and to
Right.
improve.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
my message to anybody who's considering entrepreneurship is I know it's going to cost you money, okay?
I was going to go there.
But
That's where I was going next. Yeah.
go, do yourself a favor, go get a coach. And I'm not promoting myself.
Yeah.
Go get Karen, go get a coach, get someone who can be by your side to guide you on
Right.
this process. So maybe on the front end you're going to spend money you don't have, but I promise you that it's going to lead to one or two things. One, you may decide it's not for you. Okay, great investment. Okay, or you're going to go and have, your parents going to guide you how to walk down the street and how to look at the green light and the red light and how to look left and how to look right and how to cross the street. You're going to get there. And then you're going to go to the next milestone.
Yep.
But people just think that they feel that to spend money on mentoring and coaching on that guidance that they don't have, I can figure it out. And my message is no, you won't. Okay. Reading a book and watching YouTube, you can learn a lot. I watch YouTubes
I
all day.
agree. I
Okay.
agree.
I get,
Yeah,
I,
I agree
I,
with you.
I listen to podcasts all day. I learn from every single one of them. But that's just another nugget, right? Another
It's
nugget
another
of
notch in the
insight.
belt. Yeah. To your
Yeah,
point. Yeah,
right.
I agree with you. It's another notch in the belt. And that's where a coach or mentor, myself, ever, whatever, comes in because you can only do so much on your own. And it's still great to study and do all of that, but yes, you can. And I say it with love. You can only do so much on your own. So the point of the coach and the mentor is to help guide you, is to help uncover what's going on, so that you can extract it, so that you could shed it, so that you could become this version of you that steps
Mm.
into their power and is able to reach the next level of success. That is, to reach whatever the next level of success that is for you.
So I wanted to share before I ask you a couple of quick rapid questions. Something that I came across. It's on mine. I came across it years ago. I don't know who to give credit to. Maybe some of your listeners or mine will tell me. But it's called the 5W questions, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I use it extensively with before my discovery calls with clients. I use it in graduate school. I use it when I mentor people about relationships. I always use it. And those 5W questions, they all start with W, obviously, are so simple, and the power is in the simplicity of the question. So you can ask that question about your career, you can ask about your relationship. I ask the question of people who are entrepreneurs or small business owners. Okay, so here are the questions. Question number one: what is currently working in your business? Question number two: what could use improvement? Question number three: what is not working? Question number four: why is it not working? And question number five: what actions or what are you doing about improving and taking care of the things that are not working? So, really simple questions, and it forces, and again, you could use it on relationships, what's working in my
Mm-hmm.
relationship, what can use with anything. But the beauty of the 5W questions is that it requires you to go into a deep thinking mode
Yeah.
that with as much unbiased objectivity that you can muster as a human being, which is tough for us, and answer the questions truthfully, right? And when you write the answers down and you stare at them, that's your window into an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a corporate world and you have a job, I used to tell my MBA students who are full-time employees, most of them, right? Because MBA is an evening school. Quite a few of them used to ask me to mentor them, and they were very unhappy at work. Surprise, surprise, right? And I used to tell them, I said, listen, if you're unhappy, unfulfilled personally and professionally at your job, get the hell out. But I'm not telling you to quit your job. Don't be stupid. When I say get the hell out, is don't compromise. Start to take actions on getting out of that environment. Whatever it is you choose. It could be another job, or it could be start your own business if you have great ideas.
Right.
Um, but don't quit. And and I always felt that the way to create successful companies is to create cultures, and that's how I coach my clients,
Right.
in addition to marketing. Create a culture that allows your employees to be fulfilled personally and
Right.
professionally. And just like I said in the beginning about the reviews, it's our responsibility as the employers or business owners, as people that are listening. If you have an employees, one, two, or 50,
Right.
your responsibility is to provide them a culture and environment that allows them to thrive so they don't think ever
Right.
about changing jobs. Because then, of all the money and effort that you spend into the employee when they leave, it's business suicide, right? It's stupid. So, on the corporate side, you and I know that 8 out of 10 times corporations fails because they don't do that.
Right.
But on the small business side, which is our tribe and the entrepreneurs, yeah, remember, you can't do this alone, right?
Right.
Don't create. So, for the women that are in your tribe, if you start a business and maybe you're alone, maybe you have one employee, don't create the trauma for them that you came from,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, um, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but that's sort of like my final couple thoughts about what we talked about.
Everything that you said is so true, and I actually wrote the questions down. To be honest with you, uh, but it's the requiring of the deep introspection. Dean Graziosi, when you were speaking, that's what it reminded me of. Dean Graziosi has a similar thing. It's the seven. Google, I think, 7 questions. If you Google Dean Graziosi 7 questions, because I can't remember off the top of my head,
Mm.
it's a similar thing that he talks about. But it's like, I want to do this. Why? And then you know what I mean. And you keep answering the questions because then it gets to the deep introspection. I love that. I actually wrote that down. I have nothing to add, to be honest.
No, it's fine. So okay, couple quick questions for you, and then we're
Okay.
done. One is, if I gave you a billboard in Times Square and you could put anything you want on it, what would you put on it?
I the first thing that came to my mind was something with disco because I'm a huge disco freak. So like standing like set like John Travolta with Saturday Night Fever, and then I would like the hustle belongs on the dance floor, and so I would put like stuff like that and just kind of talk about the hustle belongs on the dance floor, and I would also really put on part of it would be business, like mentoring and things like that, but also my message, and I've always said this is be true to who you are and just be authentic to who you are, and that you are enough and you are worthy and you are whole as you are. And I think that's what I would put on because I think people need to know that they are enough and worthy and inherently whole just as they are.
So we all screw up in life. We're human beings. What I maybe I'm asking you to which one of your kids you love more, but what is one mistake that you've made in your life that you recognize was a milestone mistake, and what you learned from it?
What if living, I lived my life because I was so scared of taking chances. I lived a lot of my life in um, the what if zone. So I never took chances. So I was afraid to take chances. And in doing the work, and even before I started doing the work, I realized how held back how much I held myself back. And so I actually told my daughter who loves to travel, I'm like, make sure you make a point to travel. Like, don't hold yourself back. Figure it out if that's what you love to do, because so often we don't, and we hold ourselves back.
So I keep saying I'm going to shut up. Every time you say something, something else comes to my mind. But so I want to end with this. What is, based on what you said, really, it's a life of no regret, right? That's really what you want to pursue. You want to pursue your dreams, pursue your passions, pursue your purpose. Don't compromise on who
And
you are.
correct. And it's not even like not about regret, but also I talked about this and I do a post, but I did a post about this, but connecting the dots, like everything works out for the highest good, even when it doesn't necessarily feel like at the time, even when it feels like crap at the time. And if you do, I had this, I'll end with this exercise, happened in January at a retreat I was at with my mentor, Tracy Litt, and it's connecting of the dots. She took out, a tape measure and we cut out where our age was. So for me, it's like 1 to 55. And it was like all the things that had happened in our life, good, bad, or ugly, that we wrote down, right? And then it's like, and then you can connect the dots and see where a shitty moment, for example, I'll go really quickly because I know it's time, and I also have to take my son to work, full transparency, is the fact that like my father died 13 years ago, and that was the impetus of me starting to work out, quitting smoking, lending to starting my health journey with my network marketing company, which now here I am doing mindset coaching. So that's the short version of connecting of the dots, but it's like, what happened, and maybe there was a lesson that you didn't know in what happened, and here you are doing something that maybe you didn't think of doing, or maybe you are, it doesn't matter, but there's a lesson there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. There are times when I review my dots and I look at it and I'm saying, "Wow, that
Right.
makes sense." It's almost like it was meant to
Right.
be, so that you can go to the next
Exactly.
step, right? But you have to reflect objectively, remove your emotions, and look at it. Karen Cooper, thank you so
Thank you.
much. This was very, very productive and valuable for anyone who's going to listen to 1 hour and 10 minutes of us at speed of 1.25, which will make life easier. I will include in the show notes how to connect with you.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you,
again
Zev.
for
This
your
was amazing.
time. And I hope your son is not
Thank you.
late to work, and I hope he doesn't get
Thank you.
fired. Okay.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.